Now, doesn't mean that this is my counter. It doesn't. I would not have been upset if the appropriate person, if they got the appropriate person right in terms of who reported, and the Lions ran the play and they just didn't get it. I'd have been like, cool, they lost the game, right?
Right.
But for them to do what they were supposed to do, and then them to procedurally get it wrong, this not a judgment call. This wasn't.
Nope.
This wasn't a personal foul, a pass interference, a holding call where it's a judgment call by the official. This was a procedural error, and a procedural error is what tanked them, and that's the part that I had a hard time with. Now, Cowboys fans will tell you, well, if they had known 68 was the eligible receiver, they would have covered him, and they probably would have. So I can't say they wouldn't, but that don't mean that they still wouldn't have scored. But you don't know. And the flip side of that too is even if that stands, there was 23 seconds left. The Cowboys had one timeout. Their kicker, unfortunately, is accurate as hell from probably about 65, 70 yards. So really, I ain't lying. So really, there is a possibility that, especially like let's say you kick the ball out the back of the end zone, right? Which is probably the smartest thing to do because their kick returner is really good,
pretty fast
right?
too, right?
Yeah. You then they get the ball at the 25, right?
Yeah.
Okay, they get the ball at the 25. If they get a 15-yard play, right? They call a timeout. They got one more. They got one more time, right, where they can probably throw the ball, run a play, clock it, and get up there and kick a field goal if possible. So what I'm saying is, it may not have necessarily been. It was close. It probably would have been a win for the Lions, but may not have been at the same time. So
yeah.
Anyway, that's enough.
So I have a question. I have two questions. Not the football enthusiast that you both are. So here's my first question. Why is something that appears to be such a serious procedural requirement left to a pretty lackadaisical process to like why is that not a more standardized process, that there is no room for error in who reports and who's eligible?
So in this particular instance, the clock was stopped. The play was a dead ball play, meaning the time isn't running. So there was no reason for the official to rush. He could have just stood there and taken his time and been like, "So you're eligible? Okay, you're reporting, and fine." Now, during the course of the game, the clock is running. So sometimes, like, what typically happens is you don't even have to walk up to the official and say reporting. You can just wipe the front of your jersey, look at them, you make sure you got their attention. You wipe the front of their jersey, and then they say that means that person is eligible. But that is really probably done in the interest of time, so that that it doesn't take that much time off the clock, and you can keep the play running because it's also happening while the play clock is going. So, I mean the play clock for the play, not just the clock in the stadium that has the time for the game.
Yeah, I think that's my question, though. Yeah, for something that's such an important, and in this instance, game determinative, why is it as loosey goosey as I could walk up and rub my chest?
Right.
I mean, I feel like something as critical as this, there has to be a different procedure it doesn't leave any room for confusion, because either one or two things happen, right? Either the ref got it wrong and confused number 68 and 70.
That's exactly what happened.
Or which is what Cowboys fans and other people are saying, is that the Lions were trying to purposely deceive them,
and they were,
and in turn trick the ref. But again, if you have something more standardized, you lose that margin of error. That I just don't understand why. And maybe they'll think about it or come. Well, actually, no. The NFL
they won't. They already said
they don't give a damn. They won't. They don't.
Yeah, they've doubled down. But it's hard. It's very contradicting though, because they've doubled down saying, "Hey, this is what you need to do to declare an eligible player," as if the Lions didn't do what they needed to do to declare an eligible player. But the contradiction of that is then they remove the ref that reference squad from further games. So
Nope,
back
they
up.
did not.
Yep.
Coaches
The story was
their
that
reference
the
Saturday,
story was
Sunday.
yeah. The story was Saturday. The story was that they were going to they wouldn't be eligible to rep the playoffs. Right, they were going to be downgraded, and typically that
Right.
means you wouldn't get another like prime time game either. But that's not the case because they got the Ravens and the Steelers on Saturday.
Steelers.
Same crew.
Sure do.
So much for that.
Same crew.
But then there is no contradiction because I was
Pretty
going
much.
to say if you're persisting that you didn't like eligibility, like declare your eligibility appropriately, then you can't also downgrade the team. So maybe a rumor just took its legs. So here's then my second question, and I'm guessing this is just a coaching call, but why didn't, when the play got called back, wouldn't it have made more sense for him to just kick the field goal, tie the game, and to go into overtime instead of risking it all on trying to get two?
Yes, it would have made more sense. But this is gambling. This is gambling man Dan right here. And he was going for the win. And he said, fuck it. And I'm going for two. Even when they gave him another chance. This motherfucker. I love Dan Campbell, don't get me wrong. But some of the gambles, take the goddamn points. God. Anyway.
Well, take the he should have taken the points when they were down there and it was 7-3. I didn't have a problem with the 2-point conversion. I'm gonna tell you why.
The second time?
When it got the third time either. I'm gonna tell you why.
The third
You're playing on the road, right? You're playing on the road. You're in a hostile environment. So let's either win or lose and go home. That's one part of that. This all plays in together. The second portion of this is you are either going to be the 3 seed. You can't go any lower than the 3 seed, right? True. You got one more week to play. I am not going to play an extra quarter where I run the risk of somebody getting hurt. That can't play in the playoffs because it's not that deep. Like what I stood to lose was more than what I stood to gain.
I see that.
You get what I'm saying? You play a whole nother quarter and one of them offensive linemen go down or a cornerback blows his knee out. I'm just, heaven forbid. I'm just saying, now you did all of that.
Running back twisted. Yeah, you're right.
Well, I'm just saying, you did all of that to beat the Dallas Cowboys and possibly be the 2 seed. But now you the 2 seed and you ain't got your key players, so it doesn't matter. So I didn't have a problem with it. Don't get me wrong. I think if this had been week 7, week 6, he kicks the field goal and they go to overtime. But in week 17, you got one more week to play, and then it's playoffs. We either win or we lose, and we're gonna go home, and that's it. And I was cool with that because it didn't have a drastic impact. The impact is, yes, you could have had 2 home playoff games if you won, but the flip side of that is you still got a home playoff game. You win your playoff game. Clearly, playing on the road doesn't affect you because they really should have won that game. And up until now, they had only lost 2 road games. So I'm okay with that in the grand scheme of things. I can see it now.
I see that now. But it still pissed me off he didn't go for the field goal in the first half. But
well, like I said, you could have taken now that one he could have taken because it would have been 7-6, right? A little bit different scenario. Now, guess what? At the end of the game, you score that touchdown, you do kick the field goal because you're up by 3.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Or
yes, sir.
Yeah. So that's an extra. That would have been an extra 3-point. Well, heck yeah. Extra 3 points. You'd have been up by 3.
3 points. Yep.
I just making sure I had
it right. Like all things Detroit, everybody versus Detroit, there are now billboards.
Right. Yes. Decker reported.
that have been erected around the city. Is that the right word? Erected? I don't know if that's the right word. Anyway, which state Decker reported.
Yes.
And they are also challenging the Lions' overall record.
Right. Crossed out the 11. Put 12-4. I just saw it on 75. I just saw it.
Well, we do that in Detroit because remember we refer to the Pistons '04 victory as a 5-game sweep.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, remember they won in 5, but a sweep is usually 4, but we call it a 5-game sweep because the Lakers won in overtime in game 2 and barely won, so we say it's a 5-game sweep. So there's really no such thing, but hey, I guess that's what we do. Now, on the flip side of this, the only reason that this is it gets Lions fans the way hot and bothered the way it does is because we have been on the receiving end of getting fucked from the officials, play officials,
in
an
Dallas,
inordinate amount of times. Well, in Dallas, but just period, an inordinate amount of times. Like we could, if we were to sit here and cite all of them, people would just you wouldn't believe it. So it's no reason to go through all of them. But guess what? I'll go through a few. Calvin Johnson catches a pass in Chicago where he comes down with 2 feet, a butt, and everything else. He sits the ball down. Excuse me. Typically, that is a touchdown. And they say he doesn't complete the process of the catch. The Lions lose the game. Let's see.
In Dallas.
We got. Well, hold on. No, I got to before we get there. Before we get there, we got Ndamukong Suh in Dallas, though, tackling Barber by his hair, which is legal. And they throw a personal foul on that in a close game, and they end up scoring a touchdown, and they win that game. We've also got Calvin Johnson against Seattle on a Monday night, where he fumbles and they bat the ball out the back of the end zone. Excuse me. And they say, oh, we didn't see him bat the ball out the back of the end zone because that was a penalty against Seattle, and the Lions would have won that game. There's also Golden Tate, who scores a touchdown in the final seconds against Atlanta, and it is ruled a touchdown on the field. Excuse me. Then they come back and they say, oh, it's not a touchdown. And guess what? We got a 10-second runoff. Ball game over. So you don't even get a chance to go for it again on the goal line. Dallas, we got the flag that was picked up. Pass interference call, trotted down the field. It marked off and everything, and it's picked up. So the point I'm trying to make here is we got a whole bunch of instances. So forgive us, America, if we feel that we are targeted or a bit shell-shocked. Now, to that point, I have my sources, as one of my good friends like to say, my sources tell me that Sheila Hamp Ford is actually, I don't know about right this moment, but she was going to New York today to meet with Mr. Roger Goodell to have a discussion with him about the disparity or what it appears to be. Now, she's not saying that that is rigged, but she's just saying that if you look at the stats, this happens to us more than any other NFL team. And,
facts.
And either there needs to be better training for the officials, or we need to start getting the A group officiating group a little bit more. But personally, what this all comes down, in my opinion, is the NFL being cheap again, because the NFL is the only major professional sports league that doesn't have full-time referees. So my man Allen, after he got through with the game Saturday, hell, on Tuesday he was back at State Farm doing his 9 to 5. I mean, so you can't expect the dude that's the crossing guard or State Farm or the milk delivery man. Milk doesn't get delivered anymore, but you get my point. to be on the field and be able to know every nuance and keep up with everything. But if that was what they did as a full-time job, it's going to be different. It's human, there's human error involved. So people are still going to miss some things, but not to this degree.
Well, I hope that the NCAA has full-time coaches, because there is a doozy coming up on Monday.
Well, you mean refs, full-time refs.
I'm sorry, yes, refs. And I'm guessing the state of Michigan will be going blue. Gerald, what are you taking?
Unfortunately, Michigan will win. It's unfortunate.
Unfortunately.
G repping the
NW. I don't fuck with Michigan either. No.
Go blue.
Yes. I'll ride with them this time because it's a Big Ten, and they should win the national championship. So I'm gonna say that now. Ask me if I would be overjoyed and excited for them and their fan base who can. I'm gonna keep it. Let me put it to you like this: Michigan fans are actually like Cowboy fans. That's why I can't stand either one of them. But anyway, with that being said,
man,
they are. No, they are. They are.